It is really normal at some point for your toddler to stop napping and start playing in bed. Even though it's really normal, it's super stressful for parents. We know how important sleep is and we want that for our children. In this video, we will talk about how to get them to sleep, what to do if your baby plays instead of sleeping, and what to do if your toddler plays instead of sleeping. And we'll finish up with what to do if your preschooler plays. But first, before we get going, hello, my name is Valerie. I blog at babywisemom.com. I currently have 4 children who range in age from 10 to 17 years old. Okay, first let's talk about how to get your kiddo to sleep no matter the age. First, give them time to fall asleep. If they're not falling asleep, wait 10 to 15 minutes before you do anything. Give them that chance. If sleep isn't happening, go in, lay them back down, and tell them it's time to sleep. Tell your kiddo that they can play after the nap all they want, but right now it's time to sleep. If your child typically obeys you, then they will usually listen at this point. If you go in, you put them back down, tell them to sleep, then they usually will. If this is a baby, and obviously this is an older baby because they're able to play, then they might cry for a little bit after you leave. For just 10 seconds to even a few minutes, they might cry. Also, if you have a baby, you might need to redo your typical sleep routine. That will send a clear message that it is time to sleep. You can also follow this same thing if your child wakes up earlier from nap than was expected. All right, let's get into more of the specifics by age. So what do you do if your baby plays instead of sleeping? Now remember, your how needs to match your why. If you try a how that does not fix the why, then you're never going to solve it. So with a baby, you need to figure out what is the why. Why is baby playing instead of sleeping? It might be that your baby needs a schedule change. This can mean that your baby needs a 4-hour schedule instead of a 3-hour schedule. This can mean that your baby needs to drop the dream feed. It can also mean that your baby needs to extend wake time length. Maybe your baby's playing because your baby's working on a new skill. I do have a blog post all about what to do if your baby is playing because they're working on a new skill. I also have a video about it, so you can either read or watch about it to figure out how to help your baby if it's a new skill issue. So when your baby is learning to roll over or to stand up or to sit up or even speak new words, sometimes babies just want to practice that skill instead of sleeping. It is also possible that your baby is sick or teething, and instead of crying and being upset, they're just playing because they're struggling to sleep. So you want to really figure out what is the why is baby playing, and address that why. Sometimes it takes some trial and error for you to figure out exactly what the why is. So sometimes you try a how, and when that doesn't work, you need to go back, reassess the why, and try a different how. What about when it's a toddler who is playing instead of sleeping? This is very, very common. Again, going back to our how, why, one big why this happens is a sleep regression. It also is common with toddlers when their stimulation levels need to change. They might need more physical movement between waking up in the morning and their afternoon nap. They might need more mental stimulation, which can be something as simple as going for a walk and looking at new things, or doing a simple learning activity like literally just showing them the letter A and going around the house and finding everything that starts with the letter A can be enough mental stimulation to make it so your toddler is ready for a nap. It might be that your toddler is ready to move out of the crib. At some point, the crib gets too small and not comfortable for your toddler. Cribs do have a size limit, and this is true of a toddler bed also. So, and that will typically be more with preschoolers, but just be aware, like, is it possible that my kiddo is just not quite as comfortable, and so they need the next bed phase? Some people just need time alone each day, and really everyone needs some time alone and some more than others. So if your toddler isn't getting enough alone time and they really need that, to recharge, then they might utilize nap time as that alone with myself time. Think about yourself at the end of the day with your own kids. So you put your kids to bed, you are exhausted and definitely could go to sleep, but you also just really need that recharge alone with yourself time. And so you stay awake and do other things. And so just if your toddler might need some more alone time, make sure you're doing independent play each day. If you are not doing independent play, add that in. If your toddler is taking 2 naps, it might be time to drop to just 1 nap a day. And the final possible why is the number of toys or books available to your toddler at nap time. So for one thing, make sure you have a rule that your toddler stays in bed during nap. It can't just be a free-for-all, get up and do whatever you want in the room. A toddler is not going to choose to lay down and take a nap when they have the option of getting up and playing with Legos instead. So make sure that you have the rule that they stay in bed. But it is perfectly okay when they're in bed for them to have a couple of books to look at, to have a couple of stuffed animals in bed with them. So you might have too many things in the bed that's making them like, oh, I'm just going to play with these instead. But you also might have too few. So them having a book to look at or a little stuffed animal to talk to for a little bit before they fall asleep can really help them just kind of relax and fall asleep. All right, last but not least is the preschooler group. So the thing about preschoolers is their imagination explodes. So it doesn't matter how many toys you do or do not have in that bed, the air is their toy. Like, they don't need a toy, they have their imagination. So that is something that can creep in and really interfere with them napping, because everything's a toy to them because their brain can do anything it wants with its imagination. So again, make sure you have rules. You need to stay in bed. You might even have a rule that you must lay down. It's important to know a preschooler is not going to nap every day, and even some toddlers stop napping every single day. So as your preschooler gets older, there'll be fewer and fewer daily naps. It's still important to have that time of day that is nap time so that they can nap if they need to. And if they don't fall asleep, then you treat it as rest time. I do have a blog post about rest time if you need more on what that is, but essentially the basic is you are in your bed, you are quiet, you are resting, even if you are not sleeping. So if you're stressed out because they're not taking a nap that day, it's perfectly fine to do an early bedtime that night. You have to gauge it on the child. Some children aren't napping because they just don't need as much sleep. So they'll nap some days, but other days they won't because they don't need the sleep. But a lot of times they're not napping because they're just excited about life, but they still need that sleep. So those are days when it's good to do nap time 30 minutes earlier if possible, maybe even 60 minutes earlier. Stimulation levels are also important for preschoolers. So when my kids reach preschool, one thing, we'd like to do a daily walk, but when they turned preschooler, instead of me pushing them in the stroller, I had them walk, which meant the walk that took 20 minutes is now a much shorter distance. So if we take 20 minutes for our walk, we're now going a much shorter distance than we did when I was pushing them in the stroller. So my exercise is less, but their exercise is much more. And that really helps with them being tired enough to sleep. So that's just one idea. There are lots of things you can do to get your preschooler moving. But you have to be intentional, especially if it's the winter months, or if you live somewhere where summer is super hot, then the summer months for you. Anytime you're restricted with going outside and really moving, then your child really can suffer in the nap department and even bedtime sleep department. You also need to be careful with preschoolers that you're respecting the schedule. It's very easy to just be like, we'll go to nap late, or we'll skip naps. Your preschooler is more flexible, so it's easy to take advantage of that, but timing of nap is still important. So when my oldest was a toddler and preschooler, he still had this 10-minute window when he could go down for a nap and fall asleep. If I got him down late, he would not take a nap. So I knew if I wanted a nap to be possible, I had to start that nap in that 10-minute window. Otherwise, it was going to be a rest time. Okay, that wraps up talking about what to do when your child is playing instead of napping. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I will answer you. Be sure to see my other videos and blog posts for a lot more help and information. And I hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching.